So next we are moving on to our 14th technical session, which will be handled by Dr. Doreen Kartika Wanki, Head School of Communication, Atmajaya Catholic University of Indonesia, Indonesia. The presenters are Dr. A. Sheshdari from SV Arts College and Mr. M. Kiran Kumar Raju from SV Arts College, Miss Usha Rani Rath from Odisha, and Miss Aisha Mohammed Yamin Aruj Abbas from New Delhi, and final presenter A. Deepa from Tamil Nadu and Dr. T. Devasigamani from Tamil Nadu. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Chapetrisa. It is an honor for me to be here to lead the 14th session. I hope all the presenters are here, and we will start right away because it's kind of a run out of time. We have an hour with four presenters. So each presenters have 10 minutes to present their paper, and then we'll have 5 minutes for Q&A. For the first presenters, I would like to invite Dr. Hadri from lecturer in economics from Tirupati, and Kiran Kumar Raju from Tirupati as well. Time is yours. Are you here?
Yes, madam. Are you audible, madam? Hello.
It's
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I cannot hear your voice.
Madam.
Louder, please.
I am audible.
Yeah. Okay.
Good evening, madam.
Yes. Time is yours.
Respected professors, respected professors across the world, it is my great pleasure on behalf of a 3-day virtual conference on language, humanities, social science, and education. I am Dr. A. Sheshadri, faculty, Department of Economics, SV Arts College, Tirupati. I am very happy to present paper for this conference entitled The Education System in India and Comparison with Different Countries Around the World. Education is the significant factor in India for its economic development. Since its independence, India has always focused on improving the literacy rate in our country. Education is the paramount importance to an individual as well as society. No matter which region or country we are living in, we must preserve our education system so that it helps us in preserving our knowledge. The government of India runs many programs to improve primary and higher education in India. There are many differences between education system in developed countries and developing countries. Education helps an individual to grab a basic understanding of civilization and their role as the civilian. But as the geographical region differ, the education system in different countries differs. Therefore, the present paper explains education system in India and present education system around the world and the position. The education is very important for the overall development of a country. It provides the nation with manpower, promotes national unity, and uplifts public awareness. A country needs different kinds of manpower, such as doctors, engineers, teachers, administrative officials, economists, judges, and other technical hands. If we go to the Vedic period, the education was a right of only the boy child. Girls were kept apart from the mainstream of education. Even if the king intended to impact education to his daughter, had to appoint separate tutor. Only education can inculcate a spirit of patience and endurance to meet the challenges to a great extent. But now also, there are many people in our society Who can't understand the importance of girls' education? That's why our country is not developed country. Education is a very important for every child, either it is boy or girl. Presenting my PPT.
Sorry, I cannot hear your voice, Dr. Sajadri.
Madam, I am presenting PPT. Madam. Madam, madam, is visible. The purpose of education should not only be to make children literate, but to make this earth a better place to live in. It is good education which can make positive mindset and enables one to distinguish between knowledge and wisdom. It makes all people conscious, educated people can reform the society. They can understand what is wrong, what is right. They can save good tradition. It means to follow the good and right principles of life. Education is not aimed at obtaining only a degree. It can be learnt at home, school, and college. It makes one perfect. Good behavior is a significant part of education. Enhances the empowerment of people. They are not merged as domestic workers in society. Only educated people can achieve their goal in life. Educated is everything. We are seeing in our country that there are many children who is beginning at the age of studying. It is the social evil and we should take steps to stop this. We all are the future of our country. Thus, education profoundly enhances human prosperity. Education in any nation is the criteria for social control, personality development, and social and economic progress. India's current education system is based on the British pattern, which was implemented in 1835 AD. In view of the rapid change in the social, political, and economic scenario of India, it is necessary that to take a close look at the background, purpose, challenges, and crisis of education system of the country. Education system in India. Education is a significant factor in India for its economic development. Since it is independence, India has always focused on improving the literacy rate in our country. The government of India runs many programs to improve primary and higher education in India. The Indian education system has developed over time. An important difference in our education system came with the establishment of the nation by Britishers. It was the British government that introduced contemporary education in India because they wanted a few educated Indians to help them and governing the state. In 1835 AD, when the foundation of the present education system was laid, Lord Macaulay said in clear words that the purpose of English education is to play the role of intermediaries for administration in India and to prepare specific people of India for government work. In spite of being able to use English education for a century, even in 1935, India's literacy could not cross 10% of the statistics. At the time of independence, India's literacy was only 30%. This education system played an important role keeping the upper classes separate in the remaining society of the India. In the British society, till the 20th century, it was believed that to educate the working class children meant that they make them ineligible for their work in life. The British education system also followed the same policy for the children of the poor family. Education system in India. Through the analysis of the Indian education system, nearly 200 years, it can be conducted that his education was devoid of the city and upper class focus, labor and intellectual work. It, its evils were first highlighted by Gandhi in the Conference of Gujarat Education Society in 1970 and in the education of the mother tongue and the Hindi side in a logical manner of national level. In the days of freedom struggle, the views of education in the schools like Shantiniketan, Kashi Vidyapit was the given priority. In the year 1944 AD, education laws was passed in the country. After achieving independence, our constitution makers and policy makers recognized the importance of education in the reconstruction of the nation, social economic development, etc. This confirmation is confirmed by Radhakrishna Committee in the year of 1949, Kothari Commission in the year of 1966, and the New Education Policy 1986, just before New Education Policy. Understanding the importance of education, the Indian Constitution provides reservation for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in education institution and various government rituals, etc. An attempt was made to bring the backward classes under these facilities. After independence, our literacy rate and the number of education institutions have increased dramatically, but still more than 40% of people illiterate. Unfortunately, after independence, the level of higher education and technical education has increased in universities, but the foundation of primary education has become weak. The goal of education has been mechanization in place of nationalism, character, character development, and human resource development, with more than 40% of the students passing out from medical and higher institutions continue to migrate out of the country. In the name of adult education and literacy in the country, the loot of the primary education, the weak base of primary education, the separation of the higher education institution from the strong role and the professional approach of teachers to creating a new crisis for the present education system.
You have to manage more,
Okay,
doctor.
okay, madam. The India, Indian education system comparison with different countries around the world. The Indian higher education system compared with different countries is fundamentally different. The differentiating characteristics include education system approach, research in education, curriculum, etc. Education is the organic, it keeps growing and evolves with time and the human mind. This is the major reason why the education provided in different nations of the world is different. The principles on which education systems are formed are different for every nation. However, the aim is similar, that is to instill creativity within the human mind. It is essential to understand the difference between Indian and foreign education, especially if you are aspiring to study abroad. Here is a comparison between Indian education and foreign education on the basis of education provided in nations like US, UK, Germany to guide the students. In Indian education system, student cannot switch their major subjects in the middle of courses. For example, if you are a physics major student, then you cannot opt the varied subject like languages, economics in the middle of your course. In foreign education system, most of the universities in European colleges and US based colleges allow students the option to switch subjects and don't limit to just one subject, more than one subject. In the Indian curriculum, the Indian education institution focus more on theoretical education and rely on the research has been conducted in the past. In the abroad, the curriculum for foreign university follow a more practical approach in education and encourage the fresh research other than what has already been discovered. In India, despite the continuous help offered by the government, there are limited research funds. Therefore, research initiatives are very less. Research in foreign universities is funded by some of the biggest organizations of world, such as Google, Microsoft. Hence, the research initiatives offered there are better. In the sense of curriculum, modifications based on the latest approved research studies are implemented quite late in the curriculum of Indian universities. University in the US and some other developed economies or countries update their curriculum every few years, hence offering more advanced education. In Indian has not yet been able to internationalize education in order to attract students from various countries to choose course offered by Indian universities. Foreign universities have a mixed group of students coming from various countries, therefore a student gets better exposure. The Indian universities and colleges provide limited courses to choose from the students. Otherwise, the international universities provide multiple courses specialization to students. The job opportunities provided by the universities are limited to top education system. International universities provide excellent job opportunities for the students. Pursuing education from India is affordable. Pursuing education from foreign country is always expensive as the cost of living, food, travel, etc. get added to the overall expenditure.
Excuse me, could you please go directly to the conclusion because time is up?
Okay, madam. Every education system has two pros and cons. In simple words, advantages and disadvantages. As a developing nation, the Indian education system has been developed on the pillars that support through theoretical knowledge and prepare the students for some of the toughest competition exam in the world. Whereas education system of the other developed nations are more flexible, allowing students to pursue varied career opportunities other than the mainstream often India being a developing nation lacks of funds and hence there is a need to gather funds to them enhance the education system. Beginning with more research oriented education, there are a lot of things that we need to achieve such a flexibility, updating the curriculum, global knowledge. Finally, the present education system is the result of changes made in the existing education policy of 1986 at present to new education policy 2020. It has been implemented foster the learner and the nation's development. The new education policy focus on the child's overall development. The policy destined to achieve its objective by 2030. With the introduction of New Education Policy 2020, many changes have been made, and one of those is the discontinuance of the MPhil degree in research area. Even though there are many drawbacks to the new education policy, the merits are more in number. It is believed by many that by implementing these changes, the Indian academic system will be taken a step higher. Thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sesadi. It's a really interesting research, but I think I will change the mechanism. We will put the question and answer later on after all the presenters present their research paper. Okay, right now I would like to invite the second presenter, Usharani Rath. Are you here?
Yes, ma'am. I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, you will present the research paper on identities and resistance in the novel Sister of My Heart by Chitra Banerjee Divakurani. Time is yours, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, can you show my slide?
Still not on.
Is it okay, ma'am?
No, we cannot see your slide. Try it again.
Ma'am, is it all right now?
Yeah, but still loading, I guess. Your screen is there, but not your presentation.
Can you hear my slides?
We cannot see your slide, but we can see your screen is on, but your presentation is not on yet. Just click the PowerPoint.
Ma'am, otherwise I'll present orally.
Not yet. I'm sorry. We cannot see your presentation.
Ma'am, can I present orally? It's not
Yes,
possible.
yes, yeah. Yeah, you can just present orally without the PowerPoint. It's okay too.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Esteemed chairperson and my fellow paper presenter and organizing members and the professors across the world, a very good evening. The title of my presentation, Identities and Resistance in the novel Sister of My Heart by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. Uh, in this paper, uh, I'll try to negotiate the identities of women characters in the context of diaspora and how the characters resist in the novel. Uh, how the immigrant experience of the writers uh, get best expression in the novel. And this study will explore how articulation, self expression, and collective raising of voices have women to resist in patriarchal society. Uh, so Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni is an internationally celebrated writer of South Asian American literature. Uh, she has written many works like Palace of Illusion, Before We Visit Goddess. Her works are largely set in India and the United States and often focus on the experience of South Asian immigrants. Uh, Her novel Sister of My Heart is a novel first published in 1999. This novel was followed in 2002 by a sequel, The Wine of Desire. The story narrates on two Indian girls, Anju and Sudha. The girls narrate their life stories in alternating chapters. The book follows Sudha and Anju through childhood, adolescence, and early childhood. Although some of the characters immigrate to the United States, most of the story is set in India. The story divides into two parts. The first part, Princess in the Palace of Snakes, covers childhood of both sisters. Book 2 is known as the Queen of Sword, covers the life after marriage of two sisters. Uh, In the novel, we'll see the scattered identities of the female characters. If we look at the three motherly figures in the Chatterjee houses, we'll face one character, the important character Gauri. Gauri is the mother of Anju. She says a woman has some responsibility in the society. She doesn't have any identity in society. Her duty only gives birth to a child, support her husband, taking care of her mother-in-law's house, writing their family names. She opines, I quote, she believed that a woman's first duty was to support her husband, unquote. Along with the family names, secure old ornaments also women's responsibility. Women are invested with the responsibility of maintaining the tradition. In Anju's birthday occasion, Gauri handed over her old jewelry to her daughter Anju. The second character, the I will say that PC is Bijoy Chatterjee's sister. Lost her husband at early age of 18. She doesn't have any children and support from her mother-in-law's side because she continues her life with her brother's family and she joins her brother Bijoy's household and helps raise Anju and Sudha. She is a source of information and support for the girls. A woman has many restrictions in India if she is a widow. The rules were doubled. Widows are not allowed for all functions. This is explained by Anju. I quote, I hate PC when she puts on her pageant smile and sits in the back of the hall on feast days, not participating because of widows must not. Unquote. So the another character that Nalini, the mother of Shudha, so three mother figures of the Chatterjee's family have the boundary of tradition and culture. So the caste, class, social identities matter a great deal in the novel of Chitra Banerjee Devakar's novels. So women as a class who constantly struggle to achieve financial self-sufficiency, and there is novelist represents the psychological struggles of character of Shudha. When Shudha came to know about the dark secret of the family about her father, she couldn't able to tell to Anju. Uh, so it makes the and in the novel, you can see a novelist makes use of mythological metaphors to accentuate the liveliness of the experience and characters undergo. The novel deals with the immigrant experience of the novelist, which is an important theme in the post-colonial literary landscape. Sister of My Heart is a microcosm representation of lives lived by women who are caught in the crossroad of a cultural shift. She, in her beautiful lyrical style, fills the canvases of her work by caricatures of women in all perceivable dimensions of womanhood. She observes that women in particular respond to my works because I am writing about them, women in love, women in difficulties, and women in relationship. So the characters seem concerned about its ultimate superiority. This was well expressed in these words of Sudha, who is decided to go to America with her fatherless newborn daughter in search of respectable life for both. The soul expressed by Sudha in the novel is reminiscence of postmodern women, faced by all souls suffer because of the crossroad of tradition and modernity. When a certain aspect of the conventional pattern of life become morbid and tormenting, one wishes to tear apart all boundaries and escape into a world where everything is replete with novelty, glory, and adventure. The women who are migrated feel the displacement intensely more compared to men. Still, they think migration as a step towards their freedom and individuality. Though it is hard for them to separate themselves from the native country and culture, but still they adopted and adjusted with the new culture and tried to create a harmony with new surroundings. America gives privacy, but not at the price of losing a stable, perhaps privileged identity. So it's an experience made of collectivities and many different journeys. Novelists had brought Sudha and Anju out of the non-success and made them fly independently, focused on friendship with women and trying to balance them with the fighting for passion and demands that come to women as daughters and wives, lovers and mothers. She believed that friendship with women is a unique one because of life-changing experiences that they share. In an interview, Divakaruni states that the force behind her writing is the desire to put women in the center of stories, to have their voice be the voice of interpretation, their eyes the one that we see through. There just has not been enough of that in the world if we look back at literary history. So, writing often centers around the lives of immigrant women in the novel. This particular novel deals with the difficulties faced by women and the manners in which they overcome from the problems and difficulties. It focuses on sisterhood and women friendship through the characters of Anju and Sudhar in this novel. The role of women in society is constantly questioned, and for centuries, women have struggled to find their place in a world that is predominantly male oriented. So, um, so here in the novel, novelist uh, trying to resist writing is a kind of resistance. The writing is a combination of concerns with migration and diaspora for the new woman. The journey of immigration of women writers is closely followed by the journey into settlement and journey into self. New woman that emerges out of women's writings is not necessarily a revolutionary transformation of the conventions, but who gives literary expressions to changes and challenges arising in the real social world. These women in diasporic literature saw an inexorable awakening of identity in relation to Western values of individuality and independence. The women go on to asserting and exploring their multiple identities, their collective raising of voices, and longing for change, marked the act of resistance. Thank you, Mo.
Thank you very much for your great presentations, Dr. Usara Nirat. Um, we can understand how novel can be represent, yeah, the thought of ideology of the writer, and we study a lot on the identities and resistance in your presentations. The next presenter is Aisa Muhammad Yamin Araj Abbas. Are you here?
Hello.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, you will presenting your research paper on reflecting on Buddha and patriarchy in Iqbalu, Nissa, Hussain, Buddha, and polygamy. Life in an Indian Muslim household. Time is yours, madam.
Okay, thank you. This is Aisha Abbas from English Department, Aligarh Muslim University. And the title of my paper is Reflecting on Parda and Patriarchy in Iqbalu Nissa Hussein's novel Parda and Polygamy. So the objective of my paper, before I state that, I would like to tell you about the writer who was one of the first initial woman writer from Muslim background who wrote in English in the pre-partition period. So the objective of my paper is to offer a critical analysis of Parda system in Indian Muslim society and dissemble its cultural and religious significance. And along with that, it aims to discern how a culturally constructed Parda system paves way for patriarchal conduct of Muslim women. So I'll begin with like asking what is Parda. In more simpler understanding, the denotative meaning of the terminology is curtain, but the connotative meaning is modesty, and the observance of parda varies in countries where it's practiced. So, parda, if we see, has two forms: physical seclusion and the practice of donning modest garments. So, if we see religiously, parda has more to do with dress code and manner. But culturally, the meaning has been more inflicted with physical seclusion. The debate around Purdah in India elevated around late 19th century. Like during this time, the world was going under a very heavy revolutionary phase. The West was influencing the East in ideologies and reform movements, and the century was an era of active movements which promoted reforms in all arenas. So India was no different at the time. The period witnessed a social and national awakening, mostly in retaliation to the colonial power under which India was being ruled. And the colonialists were able to rule the country, which one of the major pretension was that the condition of Indian women was downtrodden and they needed salvation and reformation. So the Indian reformers of the time, who were mostly from Hindu community, with their social crusading, began to counter this criticism of their culture and people by the British colonizers. And they also set in gesticulation a course of reviving old Indian civilization. So this revival was to be a blend of traditional culture embedded with selective ideas and ideology imported from the West for progression. Now, the Muslim reformers of the time were very slow to the rise of change than their Hindu counterparts, but they also set up reformation movements which concerned Muslim women's education, marriage, Muslim personal love. So the Hindu and Muslim reformers, they were tied by this common notion that a community's advancement is intimately linked to women's status, and to achieve this purpose, the reformation has to begin from women's condition, both at home in both communities, and also to create a separate identity for both these communities. Now, the practice of parda was one of the primary themes in the discourse. Parda was held as an epitome of supreme conduct of Muslim women and a symbol of Muslim identity. But what happened is that by the 19th century, the observation of parda was being practiced by both communities, but with an emerging need to create a separate identity, parda acquired a communalized connotation during the later century. So it began to be associated with Islam and became a symbol of Muslim identity only. So the internal debates surrounding parda as a Muslim symbol was whether parda was religiously sanctioned or based on custom, or whether the strict parda as practiced in India was in need of reform. I will skip all this. Uh, then I'll come to the writer point. Iqbalu Nissa Hussain was born in 1897. She was a Muslim feminist, women rights activist, and educator, and she had dedicated her life in fighting for the rights of Muslim women who were trapped within this traditional social roles that were assembled on patriarchal ideologies. And being very well read, educated, she saw education as only the liberator of women from the shackle of these conventions. The novel, it's a story about a widow, Zohra, and her polygamous son Kabir and his four wives. So through them and the rest of the characters and the plot, Hussein condemns the dogmas supported by culture and society, and she critiques the unequal distribution of gender roles by stating that prevalent ideology of her times, which was to quote, "It is well known fact that a man is superior to woman in every respect. He is representative of God on earth, and being born with high light deserves the respect and obedience that he demands. Then he is not expected to show gratitude or even a kind word of appreciation to women. It is his birthright to get everything from her. She should be proud, happy, thankful to him for having accepted her service. Dot dot dot. Um, this was the expectations of society from a woman at the time. So through her character, she tries to portray that the devastating effects that a patriarchal society brings on women. This system not only suffocated the development of women's individuality, it kind of also made her a puppet who goes to repeat the same patriarchal attitude later. Hence this patriarchal cycle tends to continue. Like the Zohra, who is the main character, the mother who becomes a widow in the beginning, she is wife entirely dominated by her husband Umar, who dictates her virtue and idle attributes. Like his wife's clothes were purchased once in a year when he in Ramzan, when he bought all the clothes for zakat charity. Then she needed no money because she never went out of the walls of the house. No vendor was allowed near the house. He often said to her that no virtuous woman will step out of the house, and no third person will see inside, sort of these things. So the whole degree of how ideal, how virtuous a woman can be depended on how obedient she is to her husband or in-laws. So this society fathomed woman by her submissive nature. She writes that, to quote, submission, subjection, or servitude, as it variously called, has its own significance as far as the feminine world is concerned, and is very effective in making man favorable minded towards a woman. It creates pity for her and quenches the fire of passion. It is applauded by members of both sexes. Unquote. So this widow Zohra, who instead, like she goes through the ordeal through of patriarchal treatment in her married life, and after she becomes a widow, so instead of learning lessons from her married life, she tries to incorporate same dominance on Kabir's wife. And this action not only brings misfortune in Kabir's life, the son, who is always confused between obedience to his mother and husband duties, but it also destroys the life of the four wives. Jealousy and dissatisfaction with Kabir's first wife, Nazneen, makes Zora, the mother, arrange his second marriage. Nazni was from upper class and she was beautiful, but the second wife turns out to be poor class and has ugly features. So physical appearance also matters here. Munira, the second wife, suffers because of her class and physical appearance. She is denied the rights of a wife because of her physical appearance and discarded as a servant. She is exploited with her abilities to cook and clean, and she is treated like a servant. So the here, even in the first marriage, this Kabir, uh, he never thought of giving or being very concerned about the temperament of his wives. He was just concerned with like the society, with the beauty and appearance of his wives. Hussein also comments on the agonies of new widows. Like Zohra, as I said, she's the mother, but in the beginning itself, she is widowed. Now, during the ceremony, she is shamed for being alive while her husband is dead. Now, here is the hypocrisy. A widow is seen as a curse if she outlives her husband. Like if a married woman is fortunate in society, if death claims her before her husband, and she is a curse if death claims her husband before her. So we have the incidents and the episodes where Zora is shamed. She would like Zora lives in fear in the pressure of society that if she kind of deviates from the norm, she would be shamed as immoral, and she does not proceed, dare to proceed or deviate from the norms. Then we have other instances where Hussein has tried to outline how women had to confine themselves to the social conventions, either voluntarily or involuntarily. She has shown this through the instances of marriage, how the girl is confined to a corner. Um, she is kept aloof. Her immediate needs are supplied by the mother or sister. She is denied touch with outside world during her marriage ceremony before the marriage takes place. And even the women, who their ideologies on wife is that the Zohra, who lectures her son about woman's nature, is that quote, her weeping or laughter has no value, that woman or wife, their action should not have any value. You should not take their tears seriously. Your love must be in your heart, and your eyes and lips should express gravity and command. Once you become familiar and expose your weakness, she will be your ruler. So there was unquote. So there was this mindset that a man wasn't supposed to display his emotion, his affection, and this was frowned upon by senior ladies as well, because the wife would not respect him for it if he shows affection to her. The senior ladies are shown to be the inheritors of this traditional perception that confines a woman's identity. This perception, it holds that a wife is a product of circumstances, a puppet without feeling and life. She should be a mere machine, an unpaid servant, happy with materialistic offerings of her husband, faithfully bear his wrongs, infidelity without asking any questions. So we, throughout the novel, we have such instances where the writer has condemned all this. So I'll just come to the conclusion directly. Hussein's Parda and polygamy hold a perfect and realistic. Now, this novel is a historical novel that gives a very realistic portrayal of the life of Muslim women from elite class during the 20th century. Now, this women, they suffered more in the hands of culturally constructed customs like Parda. Now, Parda was more rigid during this time. As I said, there was this awakening of nationalism and reclaiming of the past traditions. So, Parda became more rigid in form, and this included complete physical segregation from opposite sex. And sometimes, as I stated, one of the instances from the novel, women were also like segregated from coming in contact with other women who were considered virtueless by the society for daring to deviate from the social norms. So the parda had become more rigid. The parda explored in the novel, it restricts women's personal, social, economic activities outside home. Now, Hussein also had portrayed how patriarchy is a persistent ideology, now which can never cease, because we have seen in the novel through the characters that women are also endorsing it forth. In the novel, it is seen that that patriarchal mannerism exhibited especially by women characters. Now, this is due, like as I have like concluded this is due to acquirement of sudden power, or the shift in power, or the fear of losing it. The fear of losing it happens when the power is transferred from mother to wife. So this transfer of authority in the hands of Zohra after the death of her husband excites and scares her. And in attempting her best to exercise that authority at par with society's expectations and patriarchal training she had observed received indirectly, directly, she fails to break this conventional chain and continues to infest the same patriarchal mannerism with other women, and she through her dominance of her daughters-in-law and rest. Now, what I have deduced is that the fault can't be said to lie entirely in Zohra or the likes of her, because women throughout ancient history have been marginalized as other. They are robbed of their individuality and trained to be believed by cultural and social tropes that they are the second sex. They are discouraged from displaying any individuality or selfhood. So I throughout the novel, I see that when power finally falls in Zohra's hand, she appears confused, not knowing how to execute it subjectively. So she tries to imitate what she has been taught by the inheritors of social customs. And if we go through that novel, this is observed in almost all senior women characters who transfer their trained knowledge of gender models to young women like the wives or the rest of young women characters, and they are suppressed to remain ignorant or silent or meek on female individuality. So now, if I take the reference of the Brazilian philosopher and educator Paulo Freire, he says that uh, the fatalist attitude and self-depreciation are usually the characteristic of the oppressed, which derives from their internalization of the opinion the oppressors hold of them. So the women characters, they kind of exhibit features of the oppressed in this novel. So often do they hear that they are good
Indian
for
version
nothing,
under
know nothing, are incapable of learning
I welcome
anything. They are sick,
chairperson and
lazy, and
who are
that.
present in
So
this
this happens a lot
forum.
that
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes,
Can you
ma'am.
make it short?
Yes, I'm done, almost done. So this happens almost that they kind of come to believe themselves that they are really unfit in the society. So to quote, as long as the oppressed remain unaware of the causes of their condition, they fatalistically accept their exploitation. Exploitation. Further, they apt to react in a passive and alienated manner when confronted with the necessity to struggle for their freedom and affirmation. So this is the reason why Zohra or Nazneen or rest of the women characters refuse to budge from the mindset and strive to bring a change or transformation the society by protesting or resisting the culture norms that have placed them at inferior position to be exploited and controlled by patriarchal society. Last, so the novel, this whole novel is actually
I'm
about.
sorry, ma'am.
I'm just done.
Your time is up.
I'm just done. 4 lines. This whole novel, it represents like it's about the Muslim woman in Muslim household, but actually it's not just restricted to the representation of their anguishes. It happens to translate to the reality that most women, regardless of religion, caste, were made to space and survive. So the writer believed that economic independence is the solution,
Thank
and
you very much for your presentation. I'm sorry, I have
it's
to
okay.
cut you because you already 5 minutes more than it's supposed to be.
It's
Now
okay.
we come to the last presentations, the fourth presentations by Deepa and Dr. Deva Singhamani. Um, you will present diaspora identity as reflected in Michael Cabon's The Yiddish Policeman Union. Perhaps I'm not make a wrong pronunciations. Time is
No,
yours.
ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. A very good evening to one and all, and I welcome the chairperson and who are present in this forum. I am Deepa, PhD research scholar from Annamalai University in India. I am here to present my research paper on diaspora identity as reflected in Michael Chabon's The Yiddish Policemen's Union. It is then I am here going to discuss about the author what is diaspora identity, Jewish diaspora, and then the summary of the novel and how the diaspora identity reflected in this novel. Finally, conclusion. Then move on to the session about the author Michael Chabon. Michael Chabon is an American novelist, columnist, and short story writer. And he born on May 24, 1963 in Washington. He spent a year studying at Carnegie Mellon University before transferring to the University of Pittsburgh, graduating in 1984. He subsequently received a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing from the University of California, Irvine. Chabon's first novel, The Mystery of Pittsburgh, and it was published when he was 25. He followed it with Wonder Boys and two short story collections. In 2000, he published The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, a novel that called as his magnum opus. It received the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2001. And his writings are frequently suffused with reference to world mythology and his Jewish heritage. Chabon's novels mainly deal with history, myth, nostalgia, Holocaust, diaspora problems, and identity crisis of Jews. He is also known for Jewish victim of the Nazi Holocaust of World War II. Many of his predecessors in American Jewish literature, like Roth, Saul Bellow, Cynthia Ozick, depict characters whose Jewishness not only sets them apart culturally, but also can lead to social stigmatization, segregation, or outright violence. Significantly, these authors either lived through the Holocaust and World War II or in its wake when anti-Semitism was much more widespread and publicly accepted. Then we will move on to the session, diaspora identity. What is diaspora identity? Diaspora identity means the community of people that migrated from homeland to alien land. Diasporas are groups of people with a similar heritage or homeland who have moved out of places all over the world. These transnational communities are groups of people who are maintain family, social, cultural, or economic links across the national borders. These groups have several identities, links, and competencies in more than one culture. It also includes literature on transnationalism, diaspora politics, Jewish identity, methodological nationalism, hybrid identities, and the relationship between globalization and migration. Then move on to Jewish diaspora. What is Jewish diaspora? Jewish diaspora is the Israelis or Jews come out from their ancestor homeland and their subsequent settlement in other parts of the world. The Jewish diaspora is a vast, diverse, and full of stories. Some of the best Jewish authors in recent years have published several, and their writings are based on love, identity, and history to crime, romance, alternate history, and it means to come of age in the modern world. However, the impact of their Jewish heritage, families, and upbringing has the greatest effect on their personal growth and characters. It does not greatly affect how the world at large sees and treats them. It is significant to note that Chabon does begin to tackle issues of anti-Semitism, the Holocaust, diaspora, and Jewish faith. He looks backwards or to alternate, invent history rather than writing novels set in contemporary America. As a result of the shift in American cultural dynamics toward the multiculturalism, along with the dwindling of overt anti-Semitism in America, Chabon likely did not encounter the kinds of open prejudice experienced by his ancestors. Chabon's The Yiddish Policeman Union, at a time when homosexuality was very much a taboo subject and the extent of the AIDS epidemic being realized. Cavalier and Clay is a blockbuster novel of that illuminates the way in which the events of the Holocaust and Jewish diaspora reached out beyond Europe across the Atlantic and continued to hunt even those who escaped. This novel also demonstrates that hope can be found in folk tales, superheroes, and tales of the fantastic that have handed down over the generations that repurposed. The Irish Policemen's Union Chabon seeks to better understand psychological effects on diaspora and those who are about to be evicted from their homes, the fear and certainty. Yet the novelist also shows that hope and redemption can exist through faith in the Messiah. All this he accomplishes in a hard-boiled detective novel and is seen through the eyes of a down and out cynical detective. Then the Irish Policemen's Union. The novel is a murder mystery, the story of police detective Mayor Landsman and his attempt to unravel the execution style killing of a junkie named Mental Shilpman, found dead in his room in a Sitka, SRO. Shilpman is the son of the federal district most powerful rabbi, a man who rules over his sect known familiarly as Blackheads. Sorry for the disturbance. Shilpan is the son of the federal district most powerful rabbi, a man who rules over his sect, known familiarly as Blackheads, like a crime boss, dispensing influence and favors while remaining as aloof and enigmatic as a Talmudic text. For Landsman, who is something of a loose cannon, a drinker who lives in the same hotel where Shilpan died. The case represents a lost chance to redeem himself in both his own eyes and those of his ex-wife Bina, who is supervisor. The novel emerged from the It Is episode. Chabon also explores interplay of nationalism, genre, and temporality. A deft experiment in genre, the narrative alloys alternate history with detective fiction. The premise of the novel is that after World War II, the state of Israel never took off. In 1948, the War of Independence was lost, and instead a Jewish community was, with the help of the American government, established in Sitka, Alaska, on a temporary basis. A story begins in the month before a reversion when Sitka is interim status will expire and the land will revert to American territory, forcing its Jewish population once more into diaspora. We are coming to the point of the diaspora. The novel starts in a strange state of suspension that the clock ticking down on Sitka's already precautions status as a temporary homeland with its resistance about to be displaced. This time frame is paralleled with two other temporalities that structure the narrative, the time of detective fiction and the Jewish religious fundamentalism. Mayor Landsman is our hard-boiled, hard-drinking detective set on the desk of solving a mysterious murder, with his name confirming not only his everyman status but also a link between the detective plot and the novel's broader interest in ideas of nationalhood and heritability. There is a remarks. Do you really feel like you are waiting for Messiah? Landsman asks his partner Peko. It's Messiah, he replies. What else can you do but wait? In contrast, those behind the terrorist plot are men without a talent for waiting, intent, or the coming of Messiah. Then move on to the session of the reflection of diaspora identity. As American Jew, Jabin feel free to explain with their cultural heritage, picking and choosing elements of that heritage to combine with his other interests. For Chabon, those who include myth, comic books, and popular culture. The novel The novel is a mystery set in an imaginary Yiddish-speaking colony in Alaska. Chapman was interested to talk about home and homelessness in Yiddish Policemen's Union. He says, I don't live where I am from, and I moved around a lot as a child. I found the most poignant parts of the novel to be the ones where you are wondering whether or not you need to home to be yourself, even to be a person. Chapman found a lot meat in the aspects of Judaism that deal with not having a home, longing for a home. The diaspora is what lies at the center of his interest in Jewish history. Ma'am, within 5 minutes I will complete, ma'am. The story developed through the experience of American diaspora community. In this novel, American is also an identity marker for Sitka inhabitants from America's East Coast. Americans in general are referred to as Mexicans by the Alaskan Jewish population, which puts their origins and their language in a strange position of otherness and even subordination to the Jewish settlement in Sitka. However, the policeman Spiro speaks American to preserve his self-identity as American and to specify his desired homeland or site of return. Spiro is described as American, Mexican, and as East Coast Jew, while his current residence is labeled the district of Sitka. In the span of 3 sentences, this suggests the degree to which Sitka, from being a universal homeland, represents a space of the Alaskan settlement. The ways in which characters negotiate the Sitka and indeed to one another display socio-cultural code switching. However, it is also functioned as a counterweight to the novel's more million depiction of modern Hebrew, a contrast much in line with Chapman's essay on the travel primer. In this novel, diaspora identity navigates such complex socio-cultural codes and suggests a diasporic identity identity distinct from the zealous reification of geographical space. The novel does not celebrate deterritorialization of this. Sitka's Jewish population is described as a gold. There is a quote in this session. A goldfish in the bag about to be dumped back into the big black lake of diaspora, which is from the textual lines, and the impending reversion is portrayed in from celebrity terms. However, Sitka impinges on Landsman's memories. The novel cautions against the monomaniacal privileging of specific territories. After Landsman and his ex-wife emotionally reconcile in the novels, denouement their relationship to Sitka in redefined in terms of their relationship with one another, which is rendered detachable from Sitka in the affirmation of diaspora mobility. Then move on to the conclusion. In the novel, the experience affects the character's life and how they have various forms of experience as Americans. Chapman has explored how the diaspora identity reflects in his novel, and it also highlights the issues of exile and belongings of identity, nationality, freedom, and destiny. Through this novel, the novelist focuses on American synthesis in which immigrants' heritage blends with Moth's culture fascination, such as science fiction and oil. Migration and cross-cultural encounters have always affected the lives of migrants, and there is a possibility of rejection, confusion, and tension when people from different cultures interact. With this, I conclude. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. We already listened and learned from 4 presentations. The first is on education system, and the other 3 is on identity, especially derived from a novel. But from what I understand, in each identity there is a culture and subculture, and also power that influence those identity. Actually, those four research really interesting, and we should have time to discuss. However, there is no more time to discuss. Perhaps all participants, if you have any questions, you can write down in the chat room, and the presenter can answer in the chat room. Is it okay, the committee? Because yeah, already 24. Yeah, it's almost an hour late. So I would like to invite all presenters to turn on the camera so we can see who is present the paper before I give the time to the committee. Usaranirat and then Aisyah, would you please, yeah, and also Dr. Ses Hadri, please turn on your camera. Well, I'm not sure if they are here. Okay, thank you very much for all the presenters and also the participants. It is an honor for me to be here and lead these sessions. I'm Doreen Kartikawangi from Catholic University of Indonesia, Atmajaya, and I hope you enjoy the presentation and see you next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I give back to the
Thank you,
committee.
Thank you very much, ma'am.